That company ended up collapsing. I was personally in debt over $200,000. No income and no ability to actually pay that off. Went through a complete, like the absolute lowest point in my life, and I'd never ever wanted to touch computers again. I never ever wanted to do programming again.
Welcome to Launched. I'm Charlie Chapman, and today I'm excited to bring you the YouTuber and prolific indie app developer behind over 30 active iOS apps, including the brand new, very cute Swipe the Cat game, Adam Lyttle. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Charlie. I'm quite excited to chat about apps and find out what it's all about on the podcast.
This will be really fun. You've been on my list for a very long time. We met, I think, for the first time last year in California. Is that right?
Yeah, at Worldwide Developer Conference last year. And you were kind of on the cool table with all the cool developers.
The cool table? We were sitting together. We had a Korean barbecue or something.
And you sort of invited me along. I was like, this is cool. I get to sit at the cool table with, it was the developer of Apollo as well. He was there.
Yes, Christian Seelig.
I was a bit of, these are people that I've read about and that I've seen online, but never sat down. And I was a bit starstruck and a bit like, oh, this is a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, WWDC is wild how you get all these journalists that you read their stuff all the time, or app developers that you've looked up for a while, and everybody's just kind of crammed in this random suburb in California.
Yeah. And being in Australia, like, we're just so far removed from everything. I'm kind of just sitting in my office on my own, doing my own thing, and I don't really see the impact that I have in the real world. I have a pretty normal life. And then I go to Worldwide Developer Conference, and then the people that I chat with online are real people.
Yeah, and speaking of being in Australia, normally whenever I have an Australian on this show, it's really dark because I'm in my office. Yeah. I'm drinking a bunch of tea, trying to stay awake. But actually right now, it is daylight, and yet we're talking here together. And that's because we're actually, we're in Singapore. We're here for iOS Conf. Which is an iOS conference that's happening starting tomorrow, I think. Actually, starting today, I think. Yeah. And so I was like, hey, we should like get together and try and do this in person. And of course, I couldn't just do the easy thing and find a meeting room. I was like, we got to have the Marina Bay Sands in the background. And so I built this kind of crazy little mobile podcasting setup. And so hopefully this sounds okay. But if you're listening and it sounds a little different than normal, that's why. But you should check out the YouTube channel, and then you can see us in beautiful Singapore.
It's not a green screen; it's a real background. Yeah. It's not like we're on Zoom with the background added in. This is the real deal.
Exactly. All right. So before we get into all of your apps that you make, I want to introduce you to the audience the way I normally do, which is I ask 3 questions to kind of kick things off, which is, where are you from? Do you have a formal education related to what you do? And then what did you do before you started making indie mobile apps?
Yep. So I'm from Australia. Lived there my whole life. And it wasn't until last year that I've actually left the country. And since then, I've been traveling all over the place to conferences and checking out the world. No formal education in anything. From the age of 19, I loved tinkering around with computers. I loved just building my own PCs and getting really stuck into it. And I think I found a passion and a love for computers because I understood computers more than people. So you can program a computer to do something and it'll do it. Whereas with a person, people are a bit complicated.
I feel like that line is getting blurrier with AI. It's increasingly, I'm trying to talk to it like an adult talking to a child, or manipulating it or something. It's very odd.
And then when it doesn't do something, you sit there and we're thinking about it like it's a human.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Right. You find yourself asking, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have a formal education, but you liked doing stuff with computers.
Yeah.
How did that eventually end up with you making iOS apps?
It's a bit of a long journey, but I was doing Shareware at the beginning. At 19 years old, I was building Shareware apps.
Oh, Shareware.
So that's showing my age.
Yeah. Was this on the Mac? Was this on
Windows?
Windows?
PC.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the age of Doom and Doom 2 when they would come out, and you could play the first few levels for free, and then you could send money off to ID software, and they would post you out a copy of the floppy drive with the game.
So were you doing games, or was there a big shareware scene on Windows? Because I haven't personally heard as many of those stories before.
There was a huge Windows shareware scene. So you ranked on Google. You found like it was good. Well, wasn't Google at the time, but you got found on
Ask Jeeves,
Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves.
Alta Vista.
People find your software, they download it, they get it free for 7 days, and then they can unlock it. So there was a big scene developing software. I had a passion for building pretty simple games and also some shareware software. Basically just trying different things, playing around with it, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. But ultimately, what happened in that scene was BitTorrent came out, LimeWire came out, and nobody was downloading Shareware anymore and paying for it. Now, all of a sudden, they could just get it for free on any of these
torrent
torrents,
sites. Yeah.
So I then moved into setting up my own agency, doing web development, design and software. Wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I knew that I have a passion for building and creating, and it was all self-taught the whole way. And I just landed myself, one of the people that were using my software, my Shareware product, was working for the education system in the UK. And I announced on my website, I'm no longer doing Shareware, I'm going to be doing software. If you know anyone that wants software built or you need a software developer, chat to me.
Yeah.
And the first contract I landed was for a big rollout of a learning platform for preschoolers, schools in the UK, which was pretty exciting, kept me busy and paid for quite a bit of, it paid
and
away from that.
That was web at the time?
It was Visual Basic.
Oh, wow.
6.0.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask too, what were the games that you were building in?
Everything was Visual Basic 6.0. That was my first real learning of development. It was a nice way to ease into it because you could just drop a button onto the visual field, you double click it, and then you could say, put the code behind it, what that would actually do. There are some limitations, and I was reaching the limitations in it, and that you sort of just move your way to different programming languages after that. There wasn't a lot of demand for bricks and mortar store needing software, actual executable software. Mm-hmm. So my skills transformed into doing web development as well, doing PHP, vanilla JavaScript, and just creating platforms or creating services or websites, whatever sort of work would come my way.
This whole time, you've always been running your own agency or making your own shareware. It's always been you were your own boss kind of situation.
Yeah. The last time I held a real job, I was 15 years old working in a video store.
Oh, wow.
Showing my age again.
Okay, so you're doing web development, and then a new platform opens up that lets you distribute software in a kind of new way. With the App Store. Did you jump on that right away, or no?
There's a bit of a decline, my web agency went under. I was pretty silly enough to go personal guarantor on company cars, I took out these loans. I was thinking that the business is making so much money and it's doing so well that I can continue I'll be able to pay back all these loans and just live for the future, live for now without worrying about the future.
You're spending tomorrow's dollars.
And good times are going to keep rolling. The good times stopped. My bread and butter were making websites for brick and mortar stores. This is back in just after the .com boom, and you could make a website for $5,000, $10,000, and that was the going rate to make a website. So every time I got a new website signed up, and it was $10,000 coming into the bank account. And then a little product called Squarespace and Wix and everything released their version of what I was doing, but instead of being $10,000 to make a website, now it's $30 a month. And pretty much overnight, the company started to just not get any revenue.
Yeah.
But I still had a lot of debt to pay off, and that company ended up collapsing. I was personally in debt over $200,000. No income and no ability to actually pay that off. Went through a complete, the absolute lowest point in my life. And I'd never, ever wanted to touch computers again. I never, ever wanted to do programming again. I became so burnt out that I couldn't even concentrate on doing it. which at the time was bad because I still had clients that I was servicing, but a business that wasn't running.
Yeah.
So I had lots of people calling me, telling me how upset they were. That
it's like a self-spiraling thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I completely gave it up. My coping mechanism was going for long walks. Like I went through quite a few pairs of shoes, just going for walks. And I realized if I put a lawnmower in front of me, I could do long walks and get paid to do it. So I set up a lawn mowing business and started mowing lawns.
Wow.
Far away from computers, far away from anything in my previous life. The fittest I've ever been in my life. All the sunshine in the world. And it was actually really nice to get away from computers, get away from the office, get away from clients, get away from everything. But the money wasn't as good as software.
Yeah.
And like I was finding myself waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 6 o'clock at night, that whole day in, I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but like 40-degree weather, 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. So, and then, doing that 12 hours a day and then coming home, body was absolutely aching. And I loved it, but it was hard.
So the same thing as, asking Claude to update my website and then sitting there and drinking coffee in my air-conditioned house.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you had your office space kind of moment where you escaped the software world and you got a real job in the real world.
Yeah. And I mean, you see it all the time. So many developers say, I just want to disappear. I want to own a farm and do it.
Yeah. It's always a coffee shop around where I'm at.
Or a coffee shop.
Which sounds like one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Well, that's what I realize whenever people say it. I'm like, it's actually really hard.
Yeah,
like, people out in the field would prefer to be
the
in
idea
an
of sitting in a air conditioning and having a relatively stable job.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, how'd you get back in it? I mean, we're at an iOS conference. You're giving a talk tomorrow, so obviously you got back into computers somehow.
I got back into it. Pulled me back in. I was managing my lawn mowing job, and I applied everything that I knew about the agency I ran, everything I knew about running a business, and that is to basically do a job, but then over-deliver, under-promise, over-deliver.
Yeah.
And basically that got people coming back, got me referrals, and within 6 months I had 90 clients on my books, which I found out later is quite an amazing achievement.
Seems like a significant amount of people. This is just you, or did you have employees?
Just me doing it.
Oh my goodness.
So then the issue became managing my clients, managing where I need to mow, how I need to invoice, how I need to quote, keeping track of all the things I'm doing.
Yeah, so what city are you in?
At this time
Melbourne.
anyway. In Melbourne. Yeah.
So what is the rain situation? Because that's the struggle where I'm at, is just keeping up with my one very small lawn. It's like the night I want to do it, I feel like it always ends up raining, and then now it's too long and it takes way longer.
Yeah.
Like, was rain a thing that would blow up your whole schedule if you were that saturated?
Yeah, that's quite insightful to think. I didn't realize that until I'm actually in the field. And you have, okay, I'm going to do 30 jobs in the next couple of days, and you look out and it rains. You're like, okay, I'm not doing 30 jobs, but they still need their lawns mowed.
It's like when an airline, when a weather event messes up the airlines, it's like the downstream impacts.
Yeah.
Because you still have lawns you have to mow the next day, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Goodness.
And they're constant maintenance, so you can't just let it slide for a few weeks because they won't get you back because the lawn's overgrown.
Right. So I think I know where this is going. You're looking for a solution to this management problem?
Well, I was looking for a solution, and I didn't want to be the one creating the solution, so I was asking other people in the industry. I'm like, surely there's a solution that can show my route, the best route I could possibly take. It can schedule all of my mowing tasks.
You have the delivery man problem already.
Yeah, but then also do the quotes, automatically follow up on the quotes. When they accept the quote, books it in, like just stuff that I would do in my day-to-day job as a developer, automate that sort of stuff.
Right.
And I was like,
because you have that mindset.
Well, exactly. And then I'd ask like people in this industry, how are you managing it? And the way that they were managing it, everyone I talked to, they had an A4, like a piece of paper. They had it in their truck. On one side was all the jobs they had to get through this week. They crossed them off. Next week, they flip it over and they cross off all the jobs again. So the only way that you could manage your whole client load, your whole inventory, like everything, was to do it on pen and paper.
Goodness.
And I said, why isn't there a solution for this? And one guy turned around to me and he says, well, if you know someone that could build it, they'd make a lot of money building it. I was like, well, I guess I have to build it then.
So that's how you got sucked back into computers?
That's how I got sucked back in, and I had no experience developing apps. My experience was PHP.
Yeah, what time period are we talking about? Is this post iPhone in the app world
this is
now?
post iPhone. Okay. So we're talking 2020. So in January 2020, I decided to teach myself app development, and the only way I know how isn't to do what any normal person would do and do a course or go get some formal training. No, I decided that every month from now on, I'm going to build an app and release it to the App Store and to Google Play. And then that started a trend of every single month I would build a new app. There was no intention to actually generate any revenue from it. I was just putting it onto the App Store, and just in my mind, I'd created so much damage and so made people so upset, and I was causing so much sort of, when my company collapsed, I hurt quite a few people.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make a mark and make an impact that was a bit more positive than a legacy of a failed company in debt and a lot of people upset with him. And I was like, well, the one thing I know is development and coding, but more as a creative outlet, more as an art form. And then that was how I got back into developing apps and then doing it on a scale. And that's the other thing about me. I think I just do things on a scale that is a bit silly sometimes.
Yeah, I'm already picking up on that. Number of lawns, number of apps.
Yeah.
It's like once you do a thing, you're like, what if I do it times 100?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a kind of an educational goal of, you said once a month?
Once a month. This is before AI, before...
Yeah.
This was all... I was learning as I was going, releasing on a monthly cadence.
How do you manage that? Did you have a process where you're like, all right, I just released an app, now I need to come up with an idea for a new app? Did you have a list of ideas you would pull from all the time? How did you even... It seems like it would have to kind of be almost like a conveyor belt system to do it that frequently.
Pretty much. I did have some ideas, like a pipeline of ideas. And then as I was building, more ideas came to mind. So when I started off, I think I had about 4 or 5 different ideas to do, just apps that I wanted to use in my daily life. And then basically it would work out to be a week of planning, a week of development, a week of trying to get it through the App Store, and then a week of overflow of any sort of...
a week of trying to get to the App Store.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. I worked a consulting job a long time ago. It was actually Windows Phone, but it was the same deal. We would always tell people we need a full week to get it into the store. And they're like, what? Yeah. This is a different thing than the web.
You don't own your apps.
Yeah.
You're just paying, you just have the privilege of getting it onto the App Store, basically.
Okay, so then you were getting apps out there. Were you pretty much just you put an app out there and then you move on? Or did any of them catch on and you actually started kind of building actually, I guess the first question, were you even monetizing them at all, or were they totally free?
They weren't monetized at all. So just run through personal accounts on the App Store, and they weren't monetized. My only distribution was posting it onto Facebook to just my friends and family, saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm building, come check it out. And I had one of my most successful apps, pretty much the second app that I ever built, and it did really well. It got a lot of downloads, and in my mind I thought, oh, this is just normal and this will happen every single time. It sort of kept the motivation and kept going. And this is 6 years ago now, so the App Store was a lot less saturated than it is now, so it didn't take a lot. If I knew now what I know now, then you could have cleaned up. But back then, I didn't know what I was doing, and I stumbled across one that worked. And then...
What do you think made it work? Which app was it?
In my darkest time, I was going through trying to find deep meaning in life. And I was an atheist. And then I was like, well, I think there's something out there. And then I was going down the path, the New Age path. And at this stage in my life, I was going down the New Age path. And I wanted to learn about things like tarot cards.
Okay.
And had a tarot card reference. And I was like, I'm going to make that into an app. So I made an app that was a tarot card reference app. and released onto the App Store. And what made it successful was it was called like tarot card.
It was an
the
ASO thing.
Yeah, it was the name of what people were searching for. I didn't do it on purpose. It was just what happened. And it just got a lot of downloads. And I thought, yeah, well, this is going to happen every time I release an app, but it didn't. I ended up selling that app thinking that I'm going to have another hit again in the future. But it took me 4 years to get another hit in the App Store quite like that one again. And if I had realized what I was on then, if I had realized how to monetize it, because I wasn't monetizing anything at the time, I would have realized that it was a lot more valuable than I thought it was or even understood it was. But you learn.
Yeah. So how did you transition from you're making these for free and not necessarily trying to make a business out of it to now you make a bunch of apps? As far as I know, your main business isn't a lawn mowing tracking app. Like, what was the transition to where you ended up?
So I built the lawn mowing tracking app. It took about like 6 to 9 months to actually build it. I released it thinking that this is what the world needs. Market validation, people that I talked to said that this is what they need.
And people will just find it on their own.
They'll find it on their own.
Yeah.
I released it and nothing really happened with it. No influencer marketing, but because I was part of community groups, I was posting in Facebook community groups and also mowing associations that I was part of, putting it into the forum saying, hey, look at this app that I've found that I'm using for my mowing business. Because I don't think in those industries that they're assuming that I'm self-promoting, because I don't think many people mowing lawns are building software.
They don't have the sniff test that Redditors generally have where they can smell it a mile away.
Yeah. So it was getting downloads, but clearly not enough downloads to generate meaningful revenue.
Yeah. And that one had a subscription, I'm assuming?
Subscription,
okay.
So it started out for free as like in a beta form. And then as I built it, I started to monetize that one. But the realization that I had was I spent 6 to 9 months building this thing. It got no traction. But this other app over here that I built in a week got more traction. Why did that happen? And how can I replicate that and not waste another 6 months on...
So when you realize that like the App Store, and maybe this is just broadly the business world, values value more than they value time spent. And those are like, they don't have to be related at all. Obviously, you can generally create more value by spending more time on something, but like you can also not do that at all and just waste a bunch of time not creating something that's valuable to real people.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was creating something valuable. It just turned out the market size wasn't as big as a consumer app.
Or you didn't know how to reach it.
Or didn't know how to reach it.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that's out there and you're like, but I guess because of the tarot card app, you were like, I think I can still make a business on this platform. And so then you dedicated yourself to figuring that out?
So I dedicated myself to figuring it out. I started to monetize apps and I was getting some good revenue coming through. And I was on Google Play and I was on the App Store and I was creating hybrid apps. I don't know if you've heard of these, like a platform called Cordova at the time.
Oh, Cordova, okay.
So I was building in HTML and JavaScript and the back end was PHP.
That makes sense because that's the world you came from.
That's where I came from. And I was looking at the numbers and I was getting a lot of downloads from Google Play, not a lot of downloads from the App Store, but the App Store was making per download more than what Google Play was. So I was left at a crossroad that this building apps in HTML and JavaScript, they don't look all that great. They don't function all that well. I have to learn native development. Do I go down the Android path or do I go down the iOS path?
Did you consider like React Native or Flutter or some of the other hybrids that are a little closer to native feeling?
I played around with React Native and I didn't like it. I didn't like it all that much. I think I want to just throw myself into something a bit more like I've been from doing Visual Basic and like all of these sort of fringe technologies my whole career. I was like, this time, maybe if I'm going to learn something, I'm going to learn something that's a bit more, I'm not comparing React Native to a fringe.
Sure, You heard it here first.
But I was thinking I want to do something native. I mean, at the end of the day, I can always learn both platforms or like you said, like Flutter or something like that. That can be on both platforms. But when I looked at the stats and I looked at the sort of the downloads and the market, I was like, if I can work out how to scale up on the App Store, revenue would scale up quicker than on Google Play. Because Google Play, like at the time, I was getting 100 downloads per dollar generating or whatever it is a few years ago now. Whereas the App Store, it's got to a stage now, for every download I get, it's about 50 cents in revenue. So for 2 downloads, I get a dollar in revenue. So if I could scale up the App Store side of it, I knew that I would be able to generate much more revenue than Google Play. So I went to SwiftUI and really never looked back.
Okay, so that would have been what, like 2021, 2022?
I think it was later. I think it's 2023.
Okay,
so I've
so
only been
only
developing in
years.
SwiftUI now for only a couple of years.
How was that, just out of curiosity, as somebody who's been doing this for a very long time, but had never done, really, you hadn't done Apple world development. What was that transition like?
Difficult.
Yeah.
Because I'd already played around with React Native, I sort of understood how SwiftUI sort of works with the flow.
In terms of declarative UI framework.
Yeah. So I don't really know the technical name for it.
Like Visual Basic was like UIKit was, in the sense of, you like put a button on a, actually both of them had like a visual editor, and then it's like, you write a line of code to decide every single thing that happens. And you say, this is this many pixels. In SwiftUI, you have that like, kind of like markup in HTML. Like you're just kind of declaring what it should generally look at like, and then the system itself decides what that actually means.
Yeah. And then the other difference is like, if you set a variable over here, it pushes it through all of the views. Whereas in HTML and JavaScript, you would have to physically
manually
update it in every single. So it made life easier, but it was really hard getting my head around it. And I got quite frustrated with Xcode, and I got very frustrated with how slow it was running on, at the time, the only way I could build on iPhone was to build on a MacBook. I was a Windows person, so I had to buy on Marketplace a broken MacBook with no screen, and I plugged that into HDMI port, and I was coding on that, and it was slow. It didn't work I didn't like Xcode. Nothing seemed to flow with it, and I found myself with JavaScript, HTML, with PHP. I got into a stage where I can think of the solution in my head as I'm wanting to build it. But SwiftUI, coming to a brand new language that had different framework, I could no longer visualize what I was actually coding. I was just banging my head
to translate. It's like speaking a foreign language. Like you think in your native language, and then you have to translate it into the new thing. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So it was challenging in that respect. But then a few years ago, one of the first apps that I built in SwiftUI was like a Learn Piano app. And this is like an app that I've been trying to sort of mold, and this is where my real passion is. And what made me fall in love with SwiftUI was I wanted to be able to just detect notes through the audio. So you can play a note and the app would know what note you're playing. And if I wanted to do that in React Native or any of those other ones, I don't know how I would ever do it.
Yeah, you'd have to bridge it to native code anyway to do that, I think. Yeah.
And when I fell in love with SwiftUI, it was like, oh, there's an API for that, and you just do this. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. What's the name of it? It's Piano. It's like one word combined, right?
It started out as, it was called Learn Piano Notes and Music, like just keywords. It started to get some attention and started to get downloads, and that's the strategy that I do. I release it for free, get some attention, get some downloads on it, and if it sinks, I don't come back to it. If it rises to the top, then I start to monetize it and I start to add new things to it. I wanted to gamify it, and in my mind, that meant turning it into a game for some reason. So I turned it into a game, and it's called Piano Run.
Piano Run. Okay. Yeah. So you have, and this was, at least initially, this was an iPad-oriented app, right? And the idea was to learn how to play piano, and it wasn't gamified at the beginning, right? Is that correct?
Had lives, and you'd lose lives, but that was about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some gaming. The vision for it was to always be a game. So some, in version 1.0, there was some game elements to it. But the vision that I wanted was like a Candy Crush, almost like you're going through a progression of a quest with different level progressions. You unlock stars, you unlock different things, like very ambitious. So version 1.0 was a pretty basic version.
You have a YouTube video that's called like how I ruined my app by listening to users.
Yeah.
That's about this story that I find really fascinating. So like, I'll let you tell the gist of it, but it has to do with going from the sort of iPad, more learning focused app to this gamified thing, right?
Yeah.
What's the deal behind that?
You plug it into the iPad, you plug it into your piano, like the MIDI port, and you play the notes on the screen, and it sort of teaches you how to learn the piano while you're playing a game. It's really aimed for my kids to play and get them involved in the piano and get them actually really excited about it. There's different levels. There's a level with a car where you drive a car. So the idea is that instead of plugging in a game controller that has like 12 buttons, you plug in a piano which has over 100 buttons.
Yeah.
And so the kids will sit there playing the piano, playing a game, and it works well on the piano. But 90% of people downloading it don't use it on an iPad, and only a very small percentage of people using it on the iPad actually plug it into the piano. So the feedback was that if you're playing it on the touch screen, you're not really learning anything or doing anything, you're just touching buttons on the screen. So I've been working for the last few months on turning that, getting the feedback from users, which was on the iPhone, it's a pretty crap game, turning it into an iPhone game, and then ended up having this weird Frankenstein app that now no longer works as I envisioned on the piano, but also doesn't really translate well to an iPhone app, and it confused everyone.
Is that where you landed, or have you course corrected since then?
That's where it's landed. And then, like I said, so I know in my mind, there's something there with learning the piano in a gamified way. And I know Duolingo is sort of going down that path now, and there's actually Duolingo for piano. Because I was going around saying I'm making the Duolingo for piano learning. Right. And people are like, yeah, you know, Duolingo have made a piano learning.
I didn't know. I knew they had the chess one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's not necessarily in that way. It's more in terms of unlocking stars, and trying to beat your top score and coming back to it. I went back to the drawing board, and I realized what had happened with the app is the DNA of it was just wrong. So if it was based on being an app for the piano, I can't translate that to an iPhone app because it just doesn't translate well. Maybe I should have just stuck with the iPad version of it. You plug it in, and not ever released it as an iPhone app. I've been trying to really personally learn piano and also learn sheet music, and sheet music is where I really struggle with it. So what I've been leaning down the path of is like a gamified app. Instead of learning songs in like a drop-down arcade fashion, now you're learning the placement of the notes on the actual sheet music.
Or I can't remember.
Yeah. So basically, there's apps out there that can teach you how to read sheet music, but they're all very black and white. They're all very, very theory-based looking.
It's more like school.
And that doesn't appeal to me. I find that really boring. I want to play something that I can get a top score, go back, try again, go back, try again, and I don't need a piano to plug it into. I can just do it anywhere. So that's the basis of where the app's going now. And then the crossroads I'm in now is it's kind of a completely different app. Can I now change the app all over again and confuse people even more? Or is this its own app? And that's where it's kind of landed at the moment. But I'll get to the conclusion of that by the time I've finished building it.
Yeah, okay. Is that one of your like core apps as far as the business? Or is the money kind of coming from a really spread out group of apps?
It's pretty much coming out from a spread out group of apps. So the portfolio,
nice, actually.
Every time I build an app, I put it onto the App Store, it generates a bit of revenue. And over time, like I think it's over 50 apps that I've developed, and I've culled a lot from my portfolio or sold a lot. But those apps mostly are generating revenue spread out across the apps, which means that like I've never actually monetized any of the piano apps. This is really just a passion project.
Oh, that's just one of your... Okay.
That's why I'm so passionate about it. I'm building it. And I mean, even on my YouTube channel, I preach a lot about, which is what we were talking about before, don't spend 6 months on an app when you can do it in a week. Right. As I'm talking, I'm sitting there thinking, I really should take my own advice because I am spending a lot of time on this piano.
Yeah, but I think there's an element of, you have a successful business that can allow you to indulge yourself a little bit, but it's not just indulging yourself. It's like you're building skills, like you're focusing on the craft, because sometimes you just need to spin up an app that's based on an idea, monetize it, do all the like standard kind of tricks, and make some money from it. But also like you want to have something you're passionate about to feed like bringing new ideas or UX design patterns or whatever that then you probably carry into all of your apps that you do, right? So now I'm curious, because your most recent app, the Swipe the Cat game, is one of the most delightful things ever. And we'll explain what it is in a second. But I'm very curious where that's going to land on, because I don't actually know. Is this one of your passion apps or is this one of your like money-making apps? But before we get to that, just describe like what this app is and how it kind of came about.
As the name suggests, you swipe the cat. Basically, it's a gamified game where a cat pops up on the screen and you have to swipe it off the screen. And it's based on those TikTok trends where you swipe the screen without putting your finger on it. And the whole objective was that I want to build an app that could potentially go viral. That was the objective.
Yeah.
Build something that could go viral. This is a viral trend happening on TikTok at the moment. If I hook into the viral trend, that could equate to a viral app.
For those that don't know, this is like on TikTok Reels, whatever. There's a bunch of these videos that have popped up everywhere where there's like a transparent thumb that goes like up, down, up, down, up, down. And then whatever's on the screen reacts in time to that. And so as you're sitting there watching it, it's just a video. If you start moving your thumb, it legitimately does feel like you're kind of like moving the person or the character on screen or whatever.
Yeah.
I find them very delightful on social media.
Yeah.
So whenever I saw you say like, I'm trying to turn this into an actual real thing, I thought that was a genius idea. One, because they're cool, and two, because I've seen that approach taken for games where people will literally market as, you know, those fake ads for games that like everybody knows aren't real games. We made that real game.
Yeah.
And it seems like those, at least that's a pattern I've seen people try. So I'm curious to hear the answer. Did that work, I guess?
In terms of downloads, yes. In terms of revenue, no. The lesson I learned from that is games are very difficult to monetize.
Yes.
And you have to go down the path of like advertising and sponsor, like that sort of path to make it. That generally seems to be what people want from the game. Unless you have like Candy Crush or something where you can unlock extra abilities within the game that you need to actually finish the level. The monetization strategy that I used for it was you could unlock different scenes and you could play the game and unlock coins to unlock the scenes yourself, or you could shortcut it and unlock scenes. Turns out people don't really care enough to use real money to unlock scenes.
I think it comes down to, having not done the game element myself, I think a lot of it comes down to like, does your game build a habit, or is your game like a fun core experience that is, you do it, it was fun, and then you move on?
Yeah.
For the experience one, I feel like you have to monetize it very differently than the come back to this every single day type app.
Yeah.
And this one feels more like an experience type thing for the most part.
Yeah. It was the in-game currency model that I went with, and I'm very happy with the end product, and I love the direction that I took with it. And every single frame on the game I've actually hand sketched.
You've talked about this on YouTube, but like, if you haven't tried it, you should just stop this video and go try it, because it legitimately is like delightful. And especially having liked the TikTok style things, it's very fun to like do it for real. But it is a like exquisite feeling app. And there's a couple different elements, but the biggest one is, I think, the hand-drawn feel of the animation. Yeah. You have an interesting approach to how you generated all those assets.
The idea was generated through ChatGPT and through Nano Banana, and then I hand draw over it a few times, and then I used Sora to animate just 5 frames between each of the scenes. So I animated by hand 3 frames either side of the animation, and then Sora did the rest in the middle, which turned out to be a very time-consuming thing to do, to sketch out each of the cats one by one, 3 at a time. So the whole business model was to put as many assets in there as possible that people can purchase and unlock. But it was very tiring and very time-consuming, so I don't have as many assets in there as I wanted to put in there, which also might be one of the reasons why monetization doesn't necessarily work on it. If you're going down a business model where you need to keep producing content for the game, then you've created a job for yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, And that is a whole model for games, right?
Yeah.
Is like, that is most of what you're spending your time on, is creating new assets.
Yeah.
But it feels like with this one, are there people clamoring for more assets? Or is it kind of like going through the initial set of the game, you kind of get the like fun of it, and then you move on, do you think?
I don't get many people asking for new assets, so I don't think that there's a demand for new assets in there. So it's a fun game. It's nice to play, and I've learned a lot from it, which I'm building into the next app as well. But at the end of the day, I think when it comes to monetizing games, I've talked about this in the past, I'll never make a game again. And I said that a few years ago, that I've made a game.
You'll never do computers again. You'll never make a game again. Yeah. We know how this plays out. Yeah, but like a big thing you talk about online and on your YouTube channel is monetization and distribution. We've talked a lot on this episode about like you building your skills in software and all of that. But there's this whole marketing and business side that you spend a lot of time on too. How has that evolved since you started doing this to now, in terms of, I know initially you were just throwing it into the App Store and hoping. What now is your primary method for distribution, like getting people to find and download your app?
The primary method for distribution is App Store optimization, getting it ranked on the App Store, finding keywords that you could actually rank for in the beginning, building an app around it, and then getting it ranked on the App Store. So coming up with an app idea is part of the App Store optimization process.
Yeah.
So when I come up with an idea, I will assess whether or not whether people are actually looking for this and how many people are actually targeting this keyword already.
What do you use to do that?
I use Astro.
Astro, okay, yeah.
He's made by Matteo. He's another indie app.
Yeah, Matteo, if you're listening, and I want you on the show. Yeah, Astro, beautiful, like Mac app too. It's kind of a cool app. But yeah, great way to see if there are keywords related to the idea that you've already had.
To validate the idea. So come up with an idea, look to see if there's keywords, what I would type in to find that app, and then look to see if those keywords are popular. If they're not very popular, the app, I never build it. If they are popular, I look at how much competition there is. If there's too much competition, I never build it. But there's a nice sweet spot where you can find a keyword, and it's getting harder and harder these days, but there's still keywords out there that if you come up with an idea, you can build it, you can rank for it, and you can generate revenue. And I think that was the part that I really nailed right at the beginning, which was getting it onto the App Store, getting it optimized, getting people using the app. What I always failed with was the monetization side of it. And then it wasn't until just recently, just over a year ago, I upgraded all my paywalls and tried an experiment, and it worked. In that moment, I realized I was already getting people downloading my app. People were already using my apps. They were finding it on the App Store. It wasn't an issue of trying to get more people using my app. It was actually finding a way to monetize that more effectively. And that went from the business generating $10,000 a month to $70,000 a month. That very stark difference. You look at the stats and you can see before I put the paywall in, after I put the paywall in.
It sounds like you had gotten really good and built up the skill set of the very top of funnel, like pouring people in.
Yeah.
But you were losing people at the monetization step, I guess, like the actual or conversion step in your paywall. And so if you have all these people coming in and then you lose everybody right there, it's like, well, if you just sit and spend time focusing on that, you can widen that funnel. Yeah. And all of a sudden it changes everything.
But then what is a normal conversion rate? What is... I was sort of thinking, I've monetized, I've done this experiment, that experiment, and you kind of get fractional little tiny changes. So in my mind, I was thinking any change is just going to be like a steady flow. I didn't understand that it was the paywall issue. I just thought it was a sort of a slow incremental process. And then
it's hard to know like what those numbers are. Like we at Revenue Cat, we have a status subscriptions report that will show you what based on our customers, what like averages are for a lot of these. But obviously it's very different for different types of apps.
Yeah.
I think the more important thing is like paywall optimization can make a really, really big difference if you have a big bucket of users coming in. But a lot of people will start focusing on paywall optimization before they get distribution. And then it's like, like making a 10% change or a 5% change. That's a big paywall conversion change. But if you don't have that many users coming in, it doesn't really matter.
But if you don't have many users coming in, you don't actually get to see the results of that change until later on.
Distribution
anyway.
is step one, which is why I think your approach of like, before you even start building the app, validating that there's users that want this makes a lot of sense. In your swipe the app game or swipe the cat game, I wouldn't think that would have been a search optimization play, because people aren't like, oh, I want to go find an app that does this and searching for it. So how did you said it like did pop and get users. How did you do that?
So the whole objective of that one was to learn about getting a game to go viral. So it wasn't necessarily, so I think I've pretty much worked out how to do App Store optimization, and I want to expand my skill set and learn something else instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over. I think I've looked at it, and I've reached a stage in my own career, my own development cycle, that like doing the same thing over and over and over doesn't really appeal to me. It's learning something new, doing something new, and expanding my skills. So I was really challenging myself to work out how to make an app go viral, and the best way to do that is to base it on a viral trend. So the objective that I set for myself was, I'm building an app that will go viral, that it has to be so good in terms of the visuals that when people record the screen and put it onto TikTok, it looks like one of those TikTok videos already. Yeah. And people just assume it's someone's animated it by hand, and then they find out it's a game, and then they go back into that feedback loop and then download the game.
But most people, when they're playing a game, don't record it and throw it on TikTok. So like, how did you create the viral mechanic?
Through my socials mostly.
Yeah.
Creating the viral mechanic, and then get people to use it. In the game over screen, there's the ability to share it with a friend, share your top score. And also later on in the release cycle, I actually put leaderboards in there and achievements and things. So I've been learning a lot about the Apple, the games app that they have.
Game Center.
Yeah. So that has been a good way to sort of, if your friend's playing a game, it pops up in their Apple Game Center app. And I mean, that's a good way to get the app out there and get a bit more exposure.
Has that moved the needle? Like, I wouldn't think that many people really, actually look at that.
I think when I look at it, I think it's mostly like a very specific demographic that would be on there. The people that are on the Game Center is actually, from my observation, more so like mums that are on like Farmville and things like that, doing a lot of those sorts of achievement-based games.
That is an interesting observation, because that maybe that's like a neglected big user base that most people aren't thinking about.
Possibly.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So then what is the thing that, like you said, you learned and tried a bunch of different things to try and make it go viral, but what made it like work, do you think?
The novelty. I reckon just the novelty. So putting onto the socials, getting people shared it. I ran some competitions, tried to drum up some interest with some competitions. So get the top score, get an Apple gift card. So it was just trying to get some viral growth from it in terms of that. I threw anything and everything I could at it, and then also put some TikTok videos out there of the actual animation, and that continues to get downloads for it to this day. The lesson that I've learned with that is you don't base it on keywords or anything that's evergreen. Then you have to continually be marketing it on TikTok or marketing it to get people using it. And my philosophy with building apps is I do it because I love the act of creating it. I don't necessarily want to create a job for myself doing something. So I move on to the next one. Then I'm building the next one with the lessons that I learned from that one, which was go for a viral trend, go for something that will do well on TikTok with good visuals, but then always have the App Store optimization as the evergreen. And then that way you have the opportunity to have that amazing growth that reinforces the App Store optimization. And then as that growth disappears, as the viral trend disappears, then people can go to the App Store and they can search it and find it in the App Store.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Because it's a very different strategy to build something quick based on a viral sensation and then like monetize it as efficiently as possible for the short window you have.
Yeah, well,
to make it worth it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think about it, because everything else you've done has been this like tweak and optimize over time and make it work. But this one, it's like it all has to happen during this moment.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I like to look at it as the experiment was to go viral with it. the optimization was clearly isn't optimized the way that I would have loved it to be optimized.
Sure.
Maybe it could be optimized better, but it was the test. Can you get something to go viral? Yes, you can get something to go viral. I need to learn lessons for the next time that happens, have everything in place. So when it does go viral, you have like the optimization of the paywall in there or the monetization strategy in there. And it's just a constant sort of progression of learning the craft.
And I mean, speaking of craft, I think the other thing with this, like we're talking a lot about it as a business and optimizing monetization and all that, but like it's also a nice sort of portfolio piece. Like it is a fun, cool, very easy to look at and immediately grok app.
Yeah.
And for that, I think you should be proud of it as just an achievement.
I'm very proud of it.
Especially in this age of most people playing this game of making lots of apps and monetizing them. There's not a quality there.
Well, you're touching on something that is the motivator for the deep motivator for that one and the piano game that I'm making, which is people ask me, what do you do? Not people that I interact with online, but people in my real life. What do you do? I build apps. Oh, do you build apps for a company? No, I build my own apps. I put them on the App Store and people subscribe to them. Oh, any that I would know?
Yeah.
I go, well, no, unless you're looking for a pregnancy tracker or counting your steps or like all these little keywords that I've targeted in the portfolio in the past. And I realized like there's nothing that I'm proud of that I could show someone on the street because they don't care. Oh, you've optimized that paywall well. They don't care. I want it to be something. I want it to be proud of something that I could show people.
It's like they're providing value to people who are searching the App Store to solve a problem, and they solve the problem. It's not that it's not valuable, but there's an element of like, this is you and your craft, and you're kind of expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And having those little portfolio pieces to be able to show off, but also just to be able to like be proud of and improve your craftsmanship that way. Yeah. I think that's really cool. And I feel like the current indie scene is in a weird state right now. And it feels like there's almost a strict bifurcation between like growth hacking and like craft people. Almost like they don't like well, I don't think the growth hacking people really even think about the craft people. But the crafts, focus on the craft people. They seem to like look down on all this stuff because a lot of those people are just, it's like the app doesn't matter. It's more about distribution and marketing and all this stuff. And so I wish there was more people that kind of straddled the line a little bit.
Well, I think the trend that I'm seeing quite heavily in the whole indie space is now just churning out apps built with AI and getting them onto the App Store. So now there's an onslaught of sort of samey type apps going up on there. And yes, you can monetize them. Yes, you can generate revenue. And I mean, I've kind of done that in my earlier stages of my career, which was to build an app per month, get onto the App Store and go through that process. So there is a time and a place for building those types of apps.
Yeah, but you part of what you're doing is learning through that process.
Yeah.
Right? Each one should be better than the last one.
Incrementally.
And it almost feels like sometimes there's an inversion on that with the AI tools of like, it's all about how fast can you make it with the least amount of effort. I'm guilty of this too. Like I'm enjoying the whole vibe coding era, but there's very much a place for making quality things for people.
I think it's just the thought process. So if you break it down to what you want to achieve with the app, then that guides how you build the app. You can build it with AI or you can build it yourself. But if you have a very clear understanding of what you want to do with the app, AI is just a tool, coding's just a tool.
Right.
But I think what I'm seeing is people are just outsourcing the entire process to AI. They're seeing a keyword and they're saying, build me an app that counts steps and then puts it out in the App Store. I really think the benefit of building your own stuff and creating your own stuff is to hone that craft and to understand the psychology of why someone would actually care about another habit tracker, care about another step tracker, and then go down that path and try to understand what makes your app different.
Yeah. I think there is actually an interesting parallel to what you said at the beginning of this, which was you were building bespoke websites, Squarespace and Wix come along.
Yeah.
And it takes a thing that would take a long time and was kind of expensive, and you can get 90% there very quickly. And everything kind of becomes a little samey, but it changes the whole landscape. But it didn't get rid of making software as a career. It just changed what's the expectations are.
Yeah.
And we're going through that right now. And obviously everybody's either overly excited or overly scared or somewhere in the middle. But yeah, I hope people don't lose sight of like building good things for people is a thing to like aspire to.
I think the people that don't lose sight of it are the ones that are going to succeed. So I think we're going to have an influx of people outsourcing their thought process to AI, but the people that use it as a tool and as to leverage their own creativity, now's the time to be building apps. So it's an exciting time, but at the same time, it's at the end of the day, it's only a tool used as well as the person building it with it.
Yeah, exactly. Before I let you go, I want to ask you the question I always ask everybody in the show, which is, what's a person or people out there that have inspired you that you'd like other people to check out?
There's this guy on Twitter, on X, Victor Seralev. So his story is he had an app store, had a business making apps. Apple shut his account down, and then he sued Apple for shutting his account down, while also setting up another account building apps. So he's gone through this whole court process with Apple about his app being shut down, and he lost the court case, and he was very worried of the repercussions of that. But in the meantime, he's gone from zero again to building a successful app business. And now I think he's generating like $60,000 a month from his app business, which is more than what it was when they shut down his previous business. So I find his philosophy and also his craft with building the apps really insightful and really nice to check out. So I recommend checking him out.
Okay, what are some of the apps, or what's like one of the big apps?
There's like an auto captions app where you can put videos in there and it does captions. He's got a paywall that is beautiful that has video in there. His onboarding process with the captions app is him explaining what the app does with captions down, like just really nice sort of polished look to the apps. So he's really quite an inspiration. And the other inspiration is Jack Fricks. He started off building a tool to release to TikTok, Reels, and YouTube. And then he's just started to sort of fumble his way around and play around with App Store optimization.
Very like
building
humble
apps.
person.
Yeah. That's what I really like about him, is that he's another one of these people that are doing it for the craft. And then the side effect of doing it for the craft is, hang on a second, this is making really good revenue. And now it allows me to continue doing what I love and reinvesting my time and energy into doing what I love. So they're the types of people that I really am inspired by online.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I think both of us need to go back to our hotels and work on our slides for tomorrow. So this was super fun. Where can people find you and all of your apps?
So it's adamlytleapps.com. It's Adam Lyttle Apps on all of the socials, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you again.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
You can find more Launched at launchedfm.com, and we're on all the social medias at launchedfm. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening. You can find more Launched at launchedfm.com. And you can find me on pretty much all the social medias. I'm at _ChuckyC on Twitter, or Charlie M. Chapman pretty much everywhere else. And of course, huge thanks to RevenueCat for making this episode and all future episodes of Launched possible. I'll see you all again in 2 weeks.